When you look at dream matches finally coming to life in the first few years of the 2020s in WWE, Brock Lesnar and Bobby Lashley was one that fans waited a long time to get, but their rivalry and matches weren't anything memorable. Edge and AJ, plain and simple, didn't live up to the hype because firstly, no one wanted to boo heel Edge, secondly, it felt like DLC just to build up the Judgment Day, and Edge's whole presentation shift in retrospect was all for naught. But in 2021, when he met Seth Rollins, the dream rivalry came to life and we got a perfect trilogy. There's times where I watch wrestling and I genuinely wonder if the whole thing is truly a simulation because sometimes two careers are eerily similar. If you were a kid that grew up in the 2000s, Edge used to ruin everything for you. If you were a kid that grew up in the 2010s, Seth Rollins did that. The guy then's kryptonite, the guy now's kryptonite. Three-man group. Two-time Money in the Bank holder, two-time Money in the Bank holder. The first Money in the Bank cash-in, arguably the peak of the entire concept. Come 2021, both guys want to be Universal Champion and our story evolves from there. When Edge retired 10 years before this because of neck problems, his opportunity to mix it up with the next generation was taken away, and with how abrupt an ending it was and how he retired out of thin air, it really looked like this was going to be a case where a return was not possible. On the April 11, 2011 episode of Raw, he came out and told us that he'd been losing feeling in his arms and that doctors told him he had no other choice but to hang up the boots and leave it all behind. WWE at this time really started to lose their top guys, mainly due to part-time schedules and retirements. Attempts were made at filling the gap with quick pushes, but things didn't materialize until the midway point of the decade. We start at the final Raw of 2014. Edge and Christian returned to host a fusion version of both their talk shows called the Cutting Edge Peep Show with special guest Seth Rollins. He, at 28 years old, was just a few months into his breakout year, linking up with the Authority and becoming Mr. Money in the Bank. Triple H and Stephanie had complete power and could do whatever they wanted to whomever they pleased, and so come Survivor Series, it was all the good guys that had been wronged on Team Cena taking on Team Authority. A win for the babyface team meant that they were free of the evil bosses, and that's exactly what happened. Dolph Ziggler had the performance of a lifetime which led to nothing, and to take out Triple H was Sting in his WWE debut. Rollins' shoulders got pinned down to the mat and now he had no safety net. The ones who gave him everything would be gone, and the only person who had the power to bring them back was John Cena. 6 weeks later, Edge and Christian returned to WWE to host the final Raw of the year. Cena and Edge meet backstage early in the night and share a moment where they reminisce about old times, with Christian trying to make a funny joke telling Cena, "Remember that time Edge went to your dad's house and slapped him around?" The tense moment then turned into a moment of respect with Cena telling Edge, "Thank you for everything," and that he's a dad now. Be careful out there when the night comes to an end. Rollins' master plan was to use Edge as the bargaining chip. The ultimatum was either Cena brings Triple H and Stephanie back, or he stomps him out and makes sure he ends up in a wheelchair. It's a pretty tense moment and a great way to use Edge without him taking any bumps or getting physical. Cena rushes down and says he brings them back, with Seth telling him, "Damn, you gotta know me better than that, I'm gonna kill him anyway," but Cena makes the save and Seth doesn't stomp out Edge. When we watch wrestling, part of it is turning off your brain and buying into the silliness. In kayfabe, these two have been fired, but minutes later they're at the top of the ramp celebrating. The rise continued for Seth Rollins. He became one of the guys that was in the biggest storylines, consistently evolving his character, while for Edge, a return to the ring looked highly unlikely. It seemed easier to bet the house on literally anything else. Then, right in front of us on a YouTube video no less, we saw a moment in time where he saw clearly. While filming a Celtic Warrior workout with Sheamus, Edge wiped out on his mountain bike going downhill, which he compared to taking an arm drag on rocks. After this, he didn't feel any pain, which got the hamster wheel turning in his head. Just days before the video was released was SummerSlam 2019 in his hometown of Toronto, where he made an appearance on the pre-show. It had been 8 years since he got physical despite appearing sporadically for segments, yet here he was hitting a spear on Elias. As we got to Houston for the 2020 Royal Rumble, there were whispers that Edge could potentially be in the match, but then again, in wrestling, there's whispers for just about anything. As the seconds counted down to number 21, the buzzer hit, and this is what we heard.
You think you know me?
No way. Oh my!
After 9 years away, Edge was back, but he wasn't wearing the Sunday afternoon dad fit, trench coat on, tights on, ready to rumble. The whole world knew that there was no way that this could just be a one-off, and Edge heads everywhere rejoiced. The 30th entrant was none other than Seth Rollins, who was still in the earliest stages of his Monday Night Messiah era, now with Buddy Murphy and AOP by his side. When they entered, all hell broke loose, and eventually it was Edge who played a part in sending Seth packing. 1 year later at the 2021 Royal Rumble, Seth Rollins returns after taking a break following Survivor Series since his wife was having a baby. Edge eliminated him from the Royal Rumble, and he goes on to win the whole thing and punch his ticket to the main event of WrestleMania. Once Rollins came back, the Monday Night Messiah was no more since he got drafted to SmackDown. He's now in this tortured poet sort of era in his career. Like, he's a bad guy, but he's also unironically hilarious with some of the things he does. Like during the WrestleMania build where he runs a smear campaign against Cesaro. We haven't gotten to the point where the fans are singing his theme music. However, his motivations are very simple and very clear. He believes there's no one to beat Roman Reigns for the Universal Championship except for him. He's the one who wants to be next, and if there's anyone before him, he's gonna take that person out. Edge, meanwhile, was fresh off being pinned by the same man and comes back to get the one-on-one match that he never got. What makes this rivalry really effective is simple premises that slowly evolve. It starts with the shared goal of becoming Universal Champion, then it's stomp versus neck, then it's how both men are similar, then it finally caps off with family being involved. These two met backstage where Rollins told Edge that he'll finish what he started 7 years ago when he had his boot on his neck and didn't pull the trigger. Seth fails to win the Money in the Bank contract and descends into madness. If he can't have that championship, no one can have it. Reigns and Edge meet in the main event and in the closing stages with the referee unconscious because, of course, Roman is locked in a Glasgow grin. Rey and Dom come down to beat down the Usos, and from behind, Seth hits a super kick and leaves, only to return 2 minutes later and be the reason why Edge didn't become Universal Champion. On the next SmackDown, he talks about Seth having no inkling of the Pandora's box of violence and mental pain he's opened, telling him that he learned from the most evil minds in the industry, from the Brood to the Ministry of Darkness, and that Rollins didn't pull the trigger because he never thought he'd be back. Seth comes out calling him Grandpa Edge and mentions his hesitation from 7 years ago. This time when he's got his boot on the back of his surgically repaired neck, he will not hesitate. It was that easy, and two core fundamentals evolved in this rivalry. The next week, while SmackDown is in commercial, he attacks Edge with a camera and he shows us footage of his motivations. If he can't have the Universal title, neither can Edge, and he'll do anything in his power to ensure that it's not him. The challenge is laid out next week, and Edge mentions that when he looks at Seth, it's like looking in a mirror of his past, with Rollins taking a page out of The Rock's playbook and joining us via satellite. When Edge makes the challenge, Rollins says that he'll think about it, then he says that he should think about it. The guy with the 3 times surgically repaired neck should think about his future as a husband and a father. He then loses it when he's called Edge Light and accepts the challenge. Rollins doesn't like that he's not seen as his own man, and what do you do when you don't like something? You make a retrospective. What's so subtle here is Rollins is slowly descending into insanity, and that 2014 day haunts him. He says that if he just finished the job, Edge wouldn't be pushing his daughters on a swing, they'd be pushing him in a wheelchair, making the promise to stomp him out for good. Now, this is a personal preference. With these promos where wrestlers sit in the middle of the ring with a spotlight on them, I think they're very effective. I don't think they're utilized nearly as much as they should be with the guys who are effective storytellers. Edge the night before SummerSlam really puts over the curb stomp. If that stomp hits, it's curtains for not only this run, but potentially his entire career. The neck is talked about a lot, and the way they talk about it, it's like it's a rotisserie chicken all ripped apart, just jammed in the back, barely being held up with duct tape and twist ties and rubber bands. He's retired because he said one more bad hit, one more move gone wrong, and it's over. Since Seth is really good at mind games, Edge doesn't do the stupid guy thing of waiting until something goes wrong. He goes into his dark place right away because he subconsciously knows that the guy attacking his family has a couple screws loose and missing, saying that he will burn Seth down, giving him a brood bath later in the night. Here's what my ruthless aggression coated brain always wonders how they didn't do. We have all the ingredients here for a generational tag match before the 2 one-on-one matches that SummerSlam was built around. Rollins and Reigns, eternal rivals, both bad guys right now. Edge and Cena, eternal rivals, both good guys right now, and facing off against essentially the new age versions of them. All 4 guys are on SmackDown, and how they didn't do this boggles my mind because at this point, Roman still wrestled on weekly TV here and there. Cena was quite literally wrestling dark matches after SmackDown even after he finished this run up. I say this because I feel like there was a great way to bring 2 stories together. There was a very simple way to piece together motivations for this. Why Edge was even here was possible because of John Cena. He saved him 7 years ago, and now Seth is trying to end that. All four guys are what they are today because of the come up with the other man. The old guys' motivations can be as simple as teaching the new guys that they're the last of a dying breed, that Seth and Roman are at a make or break point. It didn't even need to have a definitive winner. There's always shenanigans ways to get out of these things. There's also a built-in rivalry between every single wrestler in the match one way or another. Pick one man and they have a history with the other three either way, but I digress. SummerSlam this year for WWE is not a podium show at all, but the one universal opinion coming out of it was that Seth and Edge had the best match of the night. Both entrances feel big time, particularly Edge's with the Brood theme, rising up through the flames, glasses on, really proving that he's not to be taken lightly and that he's coming into this as dark as ever. The story of the match is very simple and Pat McAfee says it to start. For Rollins, hit a stomp. For Edge, avoid the stomp. Early, Seth dribbles his opponent's head into the ring post and then the steel steps, setting up for his finisher. Pacing wise, this one builds up real nicely. The pedigree attempt is countered into a glam slam, followed by Rollins going for a stomp, only to eat a spear through the ropes. Rollins catches the spear into a pedigree, which always works nicely against guys who have that as a finisher. And I swear to God, this guy just hits a Phoenix Splash just cause. The success rate of this has to be, 10-15% all time. That goes right into a spear. Edge catches the stomp into an educator, then just starts dunking Seth on the canvas, locks in the bulldog choke, and Rollins taps out. The first meeting between these two was great, but the best was yet to come. Edge declared this chapter over and done, saying that it's now time for him to win the Universal Championship, with Seth saying that the loss taught him something. He has to be more like the rated R superstar. He does this at Cesaro's expense. He's not talking about a live celebration or marrying the boss or stealing someone's girlfriend. He just beats down Cesaro with Edge's own moves. Then we get chapter 2 from the world's most famous arena. Yet again, they have an awesome match, but this one is all about the ending. Rollins hits a glam slam. It looks awkward the first time around. Second time around, it looks great. The mind games in this match continue with Edge hitting a perfect pedigree and throwing caution to the wind. They do a callback to Vegas where Rollins gets basketballed, but this time he makes it to the rope. Edge tries to end it with a spear that gets caught into a neck breaker, and well, that move couldn't be named any better. Rollins kicks out of a sit-out powerbomb and then hits a buckle bomb and has a chance to end it, but the stomp gets countered into a spear for the nearest of near falls. This is an awesome TV match that has fantastic replay value. When they get tangled up in the ropes with the referee Jessica Carr, who oddly enough referees all three of their matches because Edge was a huge fan, and since he was very particular about his referees and Charles Robinson wasn't at SummerSlam, gave her a chance. Rollins goes low, then just spams super kicks like no tomorrow, and Edge does such a good job at just being dazed. He just has the most out of bed, just where the hell am I look on his face. It's just completely blank. But he doesn't stay down, leading to Rollins screaming at him to ask, "Why won't you die?" Rollins then stomps out Edge, and the look on Rollins' face is just, did I just commit murder on live television? He wants to win so bad, but the finish of the match is him just realizing that he hit the spot. He actually just pulled off the unthinkable. He hit a stomp, and he really does a good job at just looking at Edge like he's an actual dead corpse. He shamefully crawls to the cover and then just shuffles back like he actually ended someone's life, like he can't comprehend what he just did. Our series is now knotted up at ones. Edge lays there motionless. He doesn't even move a muscle from the time the stomp is delivered to when the EMTs come out. We use the term sell like death a lot as wrestling fans. He actually sells this like death. Here's what I really like about how effective they made this. It takes one. This in reality has been building for years, and it's the only time Rollins stomps out Edge. Never in a promo segment, never backstage, never in a sneak attack. You're telling the story of his neck being fragile. Why would he get back to roll into position for another stomp or roll out once he loses? None of that. One stomp, and the first one holds its effectiveness. I remember thinking that Rollins, after what happened, was going to go 2017 Strowman on him. Instead, while Edge is getting loaded into the ambulance, Seth is completely distraught. When he's interviewed, he's like, I don't know, just mumbling to himself. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I don't feel anything. He's just confused. He's got no idea what he just did. He feels like he actually committed a crime. The next week, he rocks up looking like Tin Man, and he's had enough time where he's not crazy anymore. He's kind of processed everything. He tells the fans that stomping out Edge was like stepping on a cockroach, hearing the crunch of a lifeless body underneath your foot. He shows us footage, and then he says that his own employer said that what he did was unconscionable, putting the blame on the fans and Edge for pushing him to that place. He says that he has to finish Edge one way or another. Here fell once again the WWE draft where both of them were moved to Raw. In fact, Raw basically got all of SmackDown's roster. They got Rollins, Edge, Belair, Owens, Lynch, and SmackDown got Hit Row in return, even though they weren't on Raw in the first place. Anyways, Rollins says that Edge needs to answer him. Taking his career away isn't good enough. He wants the world to know that he's better and not the light version of him. He's the man responsible for ending his career. He tells him, "I'll find you where you sleep, and I will beat those words out of you in front of your wife and in front of your children." The next week with Edge back, we see that Seth has taken a trip to the Copeland residence. Wrestlers only care about headlocks and not actual locks, so naturally the door is open. Rollins enters and is hunting for Edge's wife, Beth Phoenix. Now in real time, it felt like one way or another we were going to get some sort of Seth-Beth interaction with how personal this one was, either down in NXT where she was a commentator or now. Surprisingly, that didn't happen. He goes into the fridge, grabs some orange juice, and then makes fun of Edge's daughter's artwork, calling it rotten. It's a pretty tame home invasion in comparison to what usually happens in these. Some sort of violence, some sort of crazy shenanigans, but we're almost conditioned to believe that there's going to be some sort of insanity that happens. At the core of it, invading a man's house is a big deal on its own. Rollins asks Edge to name the place, time, and even stipulation, and he picks Hell in a Cell. Edge, back with the Spotlight promo, says that the home invasion is straight out of his playbook, that he underestimated Seth, and that he is in fact not Edge Light. He's his own man, and that's what Rollins has wanted to hear this entire time, so that thread is tied up really nice. He finishes off by promising to scar Seth's soul. Rollins answers later in the night saying that he's been calloused by it, scarred by it. He is what he is today because of Hell in a Cell, which is true. 2019 and the mess there led to him turning, and this iteration of the character. Hell in a Cell the past couple years has really gone through it. A concept that was once reserved for personal hatred, violence, and pure barbarity was given out like it was nothing. It used to be the calling card to contain two bitter rivals, and now even though we still got some awesome matches, it wasn't this thing that was used once in a while and when it was needed. By this point in 2021, we'd already seen 4 Cell matches, and in the last calendar year, there were 7 in total. I can assure you, there did not need to be 7 of these. The magic behind those 4 words lost their impact, and any seasoned fan will be quick to tell you that. This was the type of rivalry that these matches were reserved for, though. I'll also add, if we want to trace a revival point for when Hell in a Cell started to get its mojo back and get used sparingly again, and for the right reasons, it was here. Edge coming in had only been inside Hell in a Cell once. That was all the way back in 2008 against Undertaker, while Rollins was entering his 4th Cell match and the first one since this disaster. This is a different story. This is a fantastic Hell in a Cell match. These two open up Crown Jewel and go to war. Early on, the crowd is into it before anything even happens. They're chanting, "This is awesome." The brawl starts and Rollins eats the cage early, then remembers that he's got a talent for gouging out eyes and attempts to remove edges. Seth gets like backboard bounced off the cell right into the table set up below from the top rope, and he just eats it in this match. It's brutal, it's destructive, it feels like they genuinely despise each other. It feels like their limits are actually tested to the max. Edge brings out a ladder and Rollins hits a sunset bomb through the table, and again, it's all about Edge's neck at this point. After Edge gets up, they go to the finish of the match. They run back what happened at MSG where Rollins hits a spam of super kicks, but this time after a few, he wraps a steel chain around his foot and kicks Edge square in the face, which looks brutal, then attempts a curb stomp onto a chair, only for that to be countered. Again, there's only one stomp hit in this entire rivalry. Edge has talked a lot about how you don't mess with his family, and that brings him into a dark place. He finishes the story off by going into Rollins' playbook, spamming the kicks, then he mixes in a little bit of his style, then a Glasgow grin with a wrench, but he lets go of this, and you're wondering what he wants to do as his kill shot. He hits a curb stomp on Seth, smashing his face into the steel chair and beating him with his own move. Honestly, the fact that Rollins lost to his own finisher is actually crazy. This was the best Hell in a Cell match they'd put on in a long time. It had the brutality, and it felt like two men that actually despised each other. It was the textbook way for them to finish things off. There was way more brutality, way more magic than I can describe. This is truly an awesome match that you should check out for yourself. For these two, that was it. They went their separate ways, even on the same brand. But a couple years later, there was a chance to revisit this rivalry, only this time in the finals for the World Heavyweight Championship tournament after WrestleMania 39. It could have happened and gone back to the simple principle that this was built up on, and that was the pursuit for a championship, but they left the trilogy untouched, and maybe that was for the best. The word that I feel like I've used the most in this video is effective, and that's a direct result of the amount of depth and detail put into their story. 2014 was used as a launching point to tell the tale of two men who were very similar and that fans wanted to see clash, but what more was there to this? I think if they just stayed with the dream match angle, this would have ended up in the graveyard of rivalries that took the easy way out and failed to evolve. But this wasn't just that. This wasn't their entire selling point. It told different stories. The program was fleshed out really well with a lot of underlying motivations and mind games, from wanting to be your own person to the story of redemption to failing to end things years ago to championship glory, and incorporating finishers and injuries really well. We've seen in WWE when these dream rivalries simply either don't deliver in ring, or the premise for why they're going at it in the first place is overexhausted and maybe doesn't even have any legs to begin with in the first place. In a year filled with box-like structures, fumbled pushes, and some weird TV, we got ourselves a WrestleMania-worthy rivalry from the summer to the fall that hit all the right notes, didn't overstay its welcome, and delivered the feud of the year for WWE in 2021. Thanks for watching.